Last week, I set your expectations about some of the less fun aspects of traveling full-time. This week, I'm going to transition to some of the great reasons you should travel full-time. Let's jump right in. Welcome to the How to Travel Full-Time podcast. I'm your host, Heather Markel. If you're dreaming of full-time travel or moving abroad, but stuck at the emotional, financial, and logistical challenges, this podcast is for you. I'll help you trade overwhelm for information that gets you from down and stuck to up and going. You can dream about the travel lifestyle, or you can live the travel lifestyle. If you're ready to live it, then let's jump in together. There are a lot of amazing reasons that you should travel full-time, at least once in your life. So in this episode, I'm going to give you a ton of my favorites, starting with you get to experience your own resourcefulness. So when I started traveling full-time, there was this moment that I almost actually decided I was not cut out for full-time travel. That became the catalyst for me to live the lifestyle. And that was, I had started my travels in Costa Rica, and I was 2 weeks in, and one of the things that I decided I wanted for my experience was to try out the joy of go with the flow, last minute travel. And I thought it would be really cool. The thing is, before I left for my trip to Costa Rica, I had been my usual self and pre-planned the first 2 weeks. Before I even knew what happened, I suddenly had all my hotels and transportation booked for the first 2 weeks. And before leaving, I actually thankfully stopped myself because I said, wait, if I keep planning, I'm not going to have this experience of go with the flow travel. So, of course, I arrive at the last night of my pre-planned travel in Corcovado National Park in the middle of nowhere, sharing a tent with 2 giant cockroaches. So it was lovely to be outside, but a little freaky to sleep in this tent. But I end up like, this place is gorgeous, but has horrible Wi-Fi. The guy who's managing it clearly would rather be doing something else, so he's not very helpful. And I'm trying to meet these 2 new friends I had made and get to Samara. And after 3 or 4 hours of painstaking research, I can only learn that either I can take a dangerous sounding overnight bus trip, or I can pay way over my budget for a flight. And I lost it. I just thought, wow, I am not cut out for this lifestyle if I can't figure out how to meet these 2 friends. And I had a whole pity party. And eventually this voice in my head said, well, Heather, look, instead of trying so hard to get where you can't, why don't you just figure out where you can go? And it was this whole epiphany. And once I did that, that was really the beginning of my journey. So learning about your own resourcefulness, it may take a little bit of some pain, and because you do have to change a little bit, and figure out your new identity. But when you get there, it's pretty darn amazing. So part of that experience also, you get to reconnect with yourself. So if you've had a life change, like a divorce, so I had been divorced years before, or maybe you lost someone, or you left a career, you might be wondering, well, who am I now? And I remember along my own journey, that first year of traveling full-time was very much like a vision quest. And I didn't realize all of those personal issues that I still needed to work on. And one of the ones that came up, unfortunately, was self-respect. And I realized I was not treating myself with enough respect. And I had this wonderful mentor. She was like 20 years younger than me, who perfectly modeled self-respect. And she was, for me, this teacher. She didn't mean to be, for me. And I even recently I reminded her, I thanked her for being my role model. And so she still chuckles at that. But I got to work on these deep personal issues that, because I had made this space to really look at who am I now and who do I want to be, and work on becoming that person. So reconnection with yourself is a beautiful part of the full-time travel experience. Another great reason to do this is you will meet amazing people. I have met people all over the world, many of whom I'm still in touch with, like Karen, who runs a great coffee shop in Costa Rica. And I learned that I used to go there every day, and she had traveled herself, much like I did, and learned about different coffees and teas around the world and opened her coffee shop. In Kerikeri, New Zealand, where I ended up marooned with, I didn't know anyone, I recreated a whole community for myself, and I got in with this Latin fit group, and I had this great group of friends. In Thailand, I met a wonderful Swedish family, and I traveled to Cambodia with them. So, and I'm still in touch with many of these people, and just meeting these people around the world is amazing. And also, hand in hand with that is, as you meet these people, you see how other people live. And that allows you both to appreciate possibly things that you have that they don't have in another culture. Other times, you may see things you don't have that you want to incorporate. For example, when I lived in New Zealand, I learned how wasteful I had been taught to be around food, and learned that I wanted to really be different. They taught me about composting. They taught me about, reusing leftovers instead of throwing them away. It was just a wonderful, beautiful experience with nature and food. Another benefit of traveling full-time is you can get away from places that don't reflect your values. I'm going to be upfront and say I am disgusted by what is currently happening in America. And there are other places in the world that I wouldn't want to be either. But the thing about full-time travel is, if you don't like what's happening around you, you can just move someplace where you're happier. Another wonderful part of traveling full-time is you get to develop your creativity. So as you travel through different cultures, you're going to experience things that are going to naturally increase your creative side. So if you're not already inspired like I've been by just the colors and the patterns that you see, in fact, that can be in fabrics, that can be in architecture, that can be in, tiles on the floor or the wall. I mean, it's amazing, just this profound sense of what you see, and how South America comes to mind with just this bursts of beautiful, vibrant colors. Africa as well. So it could be something like that, or it might be something, again, like I experienced in New Zealand, where I learned to reuse plastic containers and Ziploc bags. I can't believe I used to just throw out Ziploc bags. And while I was there, in New Zealand, they hardly use the dryer. Of course, I'm raised in America, where everything that you put in the washing machine goes in the dryer. And wow, what a difference it makes. The clothes are better, you're less wasteful of energy, and I hardly use the dryer anymore. So you may tap into more creative ways to live your daily life. Speaking of creativity, I want to take a moment to say that this episode is sponsored by my newest program. It's a 28-day challenge to get started with full-time travel. It's full of easy actions to help you create the momentum to get started. Check out the show notes for a link to learn more. All right, back to great reasons to travel full-time. This one's really cool. You get to eat foods you didn't even know exist. So I've been amazed at the different fruits and vegetables that grow in other countries that I've never heard of. And this is part of an amazing sensory experience that is part of traveling. When I lived in, again, New Zealand, I found this, I guess it's a vegetable. It's like, it starts with a C. I can't remember the name. It was just the strangest vegetable that had no taste whatsoever. But if you mixed it with any food you wanted, it took on the taste of the sauce and the food that you mixed it with. And it was just great. And apparently it was full of nutrients. So that was one weird one. Fruits and vegetables that just different avocados, for example. I had no idea till I got to New Zealand how many different species of avocados there are. Reunion Island has giant avocados. It just blows my mind how many differences there are in the actual food that grows in each country. And it's so worth having that tantalizing sensory experience, even street foods, and just amazing. And of course, wine is another great reason. Don't get me started there, but so it's funny. When I started traveling, I loved Malbec. So I traveled to Mendoza in Argentina because I wanted to taste all of these amazing wines from around the world. In this case, from Argentina. And so when I get to Mendoza, I mean, it's just amazing. And I go to these bodegas, and I was amazed to learn that much like you have like a marriage of like a Merlot Cabernet, or different grapes get mixed together into wine blends, they were talking about making a Malbec, which was about like the different climates that the Malbec grapes grow in. And I got to try that when I went back to Argentina in 2024, a Malbec, and it really did taste exactly like I was tasting the different types of Malbec from the Uco Valley and higher up. It was very cool. However, then I went to Uruguay, where I tasted a Tannat, Tannat, and Tannat wine. Wow, loved it. So also Chile, of course, has, and France. I mean, look, okay, like I said, don't get me started. But wine is another great reason, if you like wine, to travel full time, because you will taste some wonderful ones from around the world. And of course, they're a lot cheaper when you get them in the country they were made. Rounding up the food is coffee. So I had no idea that I would be on a coffee journey when I started traveling. But yep, in Costa Rica, I learned about green coffee. I did not even ever hear about it, but I guess it has the highest caffeine content. And then Colombia, of course, is one of the best coffees that I've ever tasted. I was very sad because some of the people I was traveling with took bags or tried to take bags of it back home, and in security at the airport, apparently the bags had to be popped open to make sure that there was nothing else in the coffee pouch, which meant, of course, they had to drink it faster than they wanted to. But Colombian coffee was amazing. And it's up there with South African blends. When I went to South Africa, that was another one, getting those like original African blends right where they're made, delicious. Now, Argentina, when I went in 2019, had some of the worst coffee that I've ever tasted. Probably because, of course, culturally they're more likely to drink yerba mate, which I started to drink, which is yum. But when I went back to Argentina in 2024, I noticed that it has gotten much better. Also in New Zealand, I was surprised to learn that they make a lot of their own blends that are excellent. And I think New Zealand takes the cake for one of the best flat white coffees I've ever had in my life. And another reason to travel full time is you will see landscapes that just take your breath away. And the ability to spend an afternoon, right? Instead of being in a tour group that sort of whips you through and lets you snap a photo, you get to sit there as long as you want and admire it for the entire day if you want. And this is a real gift, just really soaking in these amazing views. And that goes hand in hand with living in the moment, another wonderful reason to travel full time. We spend so much time in between thinking about our past, maybe with regret, and worrying about our future. And so the present moment gets lost. And traveling full time gives you so many moments where your thoughts Your actions and your vision are all focused on the present moments. And it's one of the most inspiring feelings I've ever felt. I do want to say also another thing that I think is really important about traveling full-time, or at least traveling for a while in learning in other cultures, is it's more important than ever now to understand that the people of a country are nothing like the government of their country. And so as you travel through other places, you get to see that other people are unhappy with their governments too. And it's not reflective of the entire country to judge them by their government. And we really need to see this now more than ever. And a final point I'll make is you get to control your expenses. It's very different than a fixed life where you feel like a victim to all of the expenses around you. When you travel full-time, you get to decide every day how much you're going to spend on your food, how much you're going to spend on your accommodation, and how much you're going to spend on whatever else you do. So it's extremely empowering. So hopefully you now have an idea of some of the wonderful reasons to consider a life of full-time travel. Remember to check out the show notes for my new program that helps you get started with full-time travel. And I'll be here next week with more inspiration to travel full-time. Talk to you then. Thanks so much for listening to the How to Travel Full-Time podcast. If you loved it, please leave a review and let us know. Make sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes. Check out the show notes for important resources related to this episode, and come visit us at travellifestylecoach.com to learn more great information. If you're ready to get started with the lifestyle, go to moneyfortravelbootcamp.com, where you can learn all the strategies to afford this amazing lifestyle. Talk to you next week.